Hello, and thank you, Friday. I say thank you, Friday, not just because it's Friday, and of course, does everybody love Friday? It's because every single time we've come to air this week, some inmate or somebody who's helped an escaped inmate has been caught. And here we are Friday, and I got good news for you. Another inmate has been caught. Literally, it just happened as I was miking up, so I don't have a lot of information for you. But if this man on your screen doesn't look familiar to you, you may have not even heard yet that he escaped, because this fella wasn't one of the escaped 10. He was an 11th from another jail in Louisiana. I know, it's complicated, but Friday doesn't have to be. So I am here to break it all down for you, but I am going to tell you that the guy I was about to tell you about that was news, this new inmate escapee from another jail, is no longer an escapee. However, there is other news about the 5 guys still on the run, who were at one time 10 guys still on the run. The 5 guys are still out there, but more people are taking their place in jail for having helped them with this little piece of business, jumping off the loading dock and making their way to freedom. Yeah, there's yet another arrest that's been made. Allegations that a guy who stayed behind didn't even jump off the loading dock with them. Another inmate apparently decided to stay behind and had helped them escape. So now he's facing not just 1, but 10 charges of escape, just like that maintenance worker who's also now an inmate. It's all very complicated, which brings forth the question, what the hell is going on in Louisiana jails? One thing I can tell you about Louisiana, and New Orleans in particular, is that there's some technology out there on the streets, scanning for your faces, right? That could have caught these guys sooner if it weren't for the ACLU telling the police, you can't do that. It's an invasion of our privacy. So the police shut off the alerts that might have told them sooner, hey, that guy just ran by your camera. Anyway, I'm going to get into all of this with you in just a moment, but I also have big news on the Idaho murder story, right? The quadruple murder story. I know you are all waiting for that trial to begin, and I know you all heard the news that there is a potential delay that could happen because of that Dateline special that aired a couple weeks ago that was filled with information that was not supposed to be leaked under the gag order. Now Bryan Kohberger's defense attorneys want more time to prepare. Oh, but guess what else could happen? It is entirely possible that the judge could look at this case and say that is such an egregious violation of the gag order. Whomever among the police or prosecutors who knew the information and leaked the information, it could take the death penalty off the table. Yeah, I have to whisper it because I know it's making your heads pop off for a lot of you. Some of you are like, good, I think the death penalty is wrong. But it is a reality, and I'm going to discuss it with somebody who's very close to Idaho law. She literally practices in Idaho. That's coming up. And so is Brian Enton, who's at the top of this story. And then, oops, Britney Spears did it again. She got herself in trouble with the law. Every so often, police show up for Britney these days because of, I don't know how else to describe it, antics. Now that the conservatorship is gone, Britney's free to roam about the cabin. And apparently what she did in one of those airline cabins was very, very illegal. And it would put you and me in cuffs. When was the last time you saw somebody light up a cigarette on an airplane? Me too. It's been since 2000. It was probably me in the year 2000. But Britney did it. She decided to light up on a plane. And what happened afterwards caused a stir, caused the flight attendants to call La Polizia, who showed up on the tarmac. I will take you through it all, let you know what happened to the Oops, I Did It Again star. Starting here, though, it turns out that $100,000 reward money isn't the only reason that people who know something about those escaped inmates might decide in New Orleans to call the cops. It's not even the best reason. Because while 5 of the 10 escapees are now out into their second week on the run, their alleged helpers, who could have been cashing in with all that reward money, instead are getting themselves caught. 6 so far, if you count the maintenance worker at the Orleans Parish lockup who allegedly turned off the water to the toilets that helped the inmates rip it off the wall without everybody suspecting they were running for it. He's the first one. Then 4 suspects allegedly gave fugitives a ride or some money or some food or a place to hide or whatever else. All of them are women. And apropos of absolutely nothing, look at the first names. Courtney, Corvante, Casey, and Connie. I don't get it either, but they all start with C. And now a sixth alleged helper was arrested today, and police did not have to go very far to track this one down because Trayvon Williams was already locked up inside the troubled New Orleans jail for unrelated reasons. But now he's also being charged with being a principal in his fellow inmates' escape. And I just want to correct one thing. By the way, he's not just facing one count of escape, he's facing 10, like the maintenance worker. 10. What a drag. He's facing 10 escape charges, whereas each of these guys is all, they're all facing one. What a bummer, though. One for each charge of the inmates that busted out. So let me go back to the picture that you had up on the screen a second ago of Trayvon Williams. So I think at the beginning of the show when I was telling you about the other inmate from a whole other jail that busted out and has been caught, we showed this picture. It's too hard to keep them all straight. There's so many jail busties. But no, this is the guy who allegedly helped the 10 escape, and he's still in jail. He didn't even escape with them, and what a drag for him. I mean, that really stinks. But now, let me tell you about this other guy. My goodness, it's so complicated. This other jailbird who broke out, his name is Trayvon Johnson. He's 19 years old. He was being held just north of New Orleans in the Tangipahoa parish, and police say he was in jail because he was charged with a 2022 home invasion where a man was killed and a child was hurt, and he was charged with murder and attempted murder. Anyway, they say he busted out. They do say he's pretty small. He's like only 5'5" and 120 pounds, and what I wouldn't give to be 5'5" and 120 pounds. But somehow this little fella was able to get up and over a fence yesterday afternoon and run for it. And just like the New Orleans jailbreak, hours and hours and hours went by before anybody actually noticed Trayvon missing. In fact, hours more may have passed had somebody not actually called that jail north of New Orleans to ask if he was there. Like, how long would he have been out before someone noticed he was gone? And this is a really, really valid question, especially since exactly almost a year ago, in May of last year, that guy, Trayvon Johnson, also broke out of jail. And it was the same jail. I cannot write this stuff better. So clearly the guy has been to this rodeo before. But as of now, like I said, off the top of the show, breaking news, moments ago, they announced he's back behind bars. I guess he didn't get far. I guess he's not very good at breaking out and staying out. He's good at breaking out. He's not good at staying out. We just got word that he was recaptured. So I don't know, maybe they will keep a better eye on him this time. Let me tell you about the maintenance worker, though. The maintenance worker who cops say made the Orleans Parish jailbreak possible. A friend of his says that this guy never would have done this on his own.
Sterling Williams, personally, all he does is play games, and he is so, I'm not gonna say he green, but he is. He's a school head. He graduated from Culver. He's not into.
He's like a nerd.
He's a nerd. So
let's keep it 100. He a nerd.
If anybody was to walk up to him and tell him they're gonna shank him, he would do whatever they tell him to do.
I love that she's candid. He's a nerd. NewsNation's national correspondent Mill Hayes has been in New Orleans all week on this story. She joins me now again live. Mills, I am not going to ask you to weigh in on whether or not you think that Sterling Williams is a nerd. That is for the justice system to determine. But I do want to ask you about the latest on this inmate who was arrested for allegedly helping these 10 guys take off and then not leaving himself. What do you know?
Right, Trayvon Williams. We learned from Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill that he was arrested today in connection to this. And according to the arrest affidavit, he was inside the same cell where those 10 inmates escaped. And he also gave them a blanket and a shirt that helped them be able to throw those clothes on top of the barbed wire fence. Then they were able to get over that fence and then escape. And so when he was asked by investigators about this. He originally said he had no memory of the inmates escaping, but of course the surveillance camera shows otherwise. And after the investigation, they found out that it was his blanket and his shirt that they used to scale that fence. Ashleigh.
Oh, man. Well, that's the kind of evidence you can definitely trace. So that's going to be rough on him because it's not just one charge, it's 10, like the maintenance worker. So now talk to me a little bit about this latest guy, Trevon Johnson. There's a lot of Trevons going on, right? So you just talked to me about, I think, Trevon Williams. Now this is Trevon Johnson, and he was the latest breakout from the jail north of New Orleans. But even before I had a chance to check in with you, I got word that they caught him. Do you know the details?
Yeah, we just heard from Louisiana State Police less than 30 minutes ago. They say that they captured Trevon Johnson. He was being held in the Terre-Haute Parish Jail, which is about an hour northwest of New Orleans area. And this all happened yesterday. And according to all the information, it happened around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And this is what the sheriff says. Around 4 o'clock, that jail, the inmates clogged up a shower. And in order for the deputies to be able to go and help get that water out of the cell, they had to open up a door to the outdoor yard. And that's where Johnson was able to get out of the yard, and another inmate was with him. Another separate inmate helped hoist him over that fence, so he was able to escape. But this 19-year-old, as you mentioned, he's escaped from this same jail before last Memorial Day weekend, along with 5 other inmates. But this time around, he escaped around 4:30 in the afternoon, and the deputies did a check of all the inmates at shift change around 6 o'clock, and they didn't notice that any of the inmates were missing. And then they got a call, the sheriff's office did, about 10 o'clock at night, that someone called and asked, hey, is Johnson still in your jail? And that's when deputies went back to the cell, realized he was missing, and then informed the sheriff's office. And now 4 deputies are on administrative leave at this moment. But as you mentioned, Louisiana State Police have captured him, so he will be going back to that same jail, Ashleigh.
I would say Keystone Cops, but for the fact that I know that they're just so woefully understaffed and underfunded and underbudgeted that a lot of the blame falls on them. But it really might be better to point to the politicians who aren't giving the right amount of money to these facilities to do the job that they have to do and watch these people and keep the facilities, in good locked order. I also really can't wait to find out if they ever discover who the guy was who boosted, Trevon Johnson up over the wall, or if his face was covered and they don't know. But I haven't heard of another inmate being arrested for helping him escape, so keep your eye on that. In the meantime, I know it's really loud behind you. I think you're in the French Quarter. It looks like Mardi Gras, but I'm not familiar because I've never been there for Mardi Gras. I see people throwing beads behind you. I'm going to ask you 2 questions at once, and you can be quick with the first one and a little bit less quick with the second. Are these people throwing Mardi Gras beads behind you, and are you there for Mardi Gras? And second, the French Quarter has cameras that have facial recognition, and for some reason there's a whole bunch of controversy over the facial recognition, why the police aren't allowed to use automatic quick response alerts when they get a facial recognition ping on, say, an escaped inmate, and how maybe that might change after these 10 got away and some were found in the French Quarter.
Right. Well, first question, no, I'm not here for Mardi Gras, although I wish I was. It's not Mardi Gras, but it kind of feels like it always is in New Orleans. So yes, there are people throwing beads around us. It definitely feels like there's a party, and it definitely feels like there are not 5 inmates still on the run, but of course we know that they are. Now, you mentioned that facial recognition technology. Well, we spoke with Project NOLA. They're a nonprofit group that works with law enforcement agencies. We were able to get an inside look at their headquarters at the University of New Orleans, and they tell us they have about 5,000 surveillance cameras in the downtown area, and 200 of those have facial recognition technology. Project NOLA also tells us that they're responsible for at least 2 of the arrests of those inmates who have been recaptured so far. We saw multiple inmates on the surveillance camera, but there is some controversy, as you said, the ACLU saying that it infringes on private citizens, their privacy. But we spoke with the chief of police here in New Orleans today, and she says there may be some changes. Take a listen.
I said, let's suspend this, let's pause this until we can either clean up the ordinance so it would not be in conflict, or until the DA, the district attorney, and all of us can get to the table and make sure we're clearly operating within the law. And we were literally in the process of rewriting the ordinance that was submitted yesterday when the jail broke out. And that is where the confusion lies.
So in this case, New Orleans police did not get the alert that those inmates were found on surveillance camera, but Louisiana State Police, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and the FBI did. And now there's an ordinance going ahead of a city council here in New Orleans that would change that, actually.
Mills, it literally is getting louder even in the last 8 minutes that you've been on with me. So I'm going to let you go because I feel for you and your voice on a Friday night. Go have yourself a soda and enjoy the rest of Friday night. Thanks for all the hard work that you did this week.
Of course.
I'm surprised Mills isn't looking at me going, what? I can't hear you. Okay, so my next guest knows a thing or two about jailbreaks. He oversaw the Lauderdale County Jail in Alabama when an inmate whose name you will probably remember, Casey White, was broken out of that place by Vicky White, a jail guard who fell in love with him and then died in a shootout during his capture. Sheriff Rick Singleton wrote a book about the experience called Manhunt, the search for Vicky and Casey White, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and he's here with me live. So, Sheriff, my gosh, what do you make of the jailbreaks in Louisiana? I don't even know if you knew about the most recent one that, as we came to air, it was a whole other fella that had escaped from a jail north of New Orleans, has already been recaptured, but they're making arrests left, right, and center of the people who've been helping out. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, it's nothing new. I mean, it's a resolving door as far as jail escapes go, obviously. We had one in 2022, and there have been several since then before this incident in New Orleans. County jails are not prisons, and they're not built with the security measures that state prisons are built. And on top of that, you've got constantly have people coming in and out, and it's a security nightmare.
Sheriff, so far, all of the people who've been arrested on the outside for helping the inmates once they broke out are women. And I wonder if that's a big surprise to you, especially with the Casey White, Vicky White thing. She fell for him. He professes that it was real love, but whatever. I just wonder if this is like, oh, yeah, I've seen this before.
Oh, most definitely. Inmates on the inside, they are in contact with females on the outside on a regular basis. Within a week after Casey White was returned to the Donaldson prison in Alabama, he was communicating with 5 or 6 women. Women had put thousands of dollars on his commissary account. There's just some attraction. Of course, some of these ladies may have been relatives. They may have been friends on the outside before they were incarcerated. I obviously knew the inmate somehow, and they just reach out to the females. I mean, you just don't ever have a male inmate reaching out to a male on the outside to help.
Yeah, well, these females may deeply regret whatever they thought it was they were doing, if indeed they're guilty of these crimes. So I have this question for you that I think most people watching probably want to ask, and that is, it's been a week since the 10 took off, jumped off the loading dock, and made for the dark skies. 5 are back in jail, and they were all caught within 10 miles of the jail. But the other 5 are still out there. And I wonder, as the time goes on, now that we're into week 2 officially, will they let their guard down and become more careless and reckless and then more easily caught? Or will they go deeper and farther underground and be harder to catch?
They'll eventually let their guard down. When someone escapes from jail, ironically, most of them are caught in a close radius of the jail. It's either there or in a case of a prison, they're going to be caught at home. They're going to go back home. That's just the vast majority of them either do one of the two, and most of them are caught in a short period of time. The big thing about this particular escape that's going on in New Orleans, we were looking for one person. Now it's been a week. You've got 5 men still on the run. What they've got in New Orleans, they're conducting 5 manhunts simultaneously. And they probably have a team assigned to each inmate working to try to capture that inmate. Because we were looking for one person. We had one search going on. They've got 5. And by now they're probably split up. They're probably not together. They could be, but more likely they're not. So they're having to go 5 different directions to try to find these guys. And they're conducting 5 searches simultaneously.
Yeah, I mean, that's stretching resources thin, and by the looks of it, the resources are already real thin for law enforcement and for those who jail those waiting for trial. Sheriff Singleton, it's real good to check in with you again. I really appreciate you taking the time on a Friday night.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks so much for being here. We'll check in again. Coming up next, did someone just hand Bryan Kohberger a lifeline? Even if an Idaho jury finds him guilty of 4 brutal murders at the University of Idaho, something happened this month that has the potential to take the death penalty off the table in Kohberger's upcoming trial. We'll get to the bottom of it next. I've got 2 dates circled on my calendar in red magic marker, July 30th and August 11th. That is when jury selection and then the full-on trial begins for Bryan Kohberger. And I can't believe it, but it's only 9 weeks away. I probably, however, should have circled the dates in pencil because there is a chance now that the quadruple murder trial could be delayed if the defense team gets its way. And what's worse, the death penalty that prosecutors are seeking if they get a conviction, that too could be in jeopardy. All of this percolating ever since Dateline NBC aired a 2-hour special revealing information and video that no one had ever seen before. Since a gag order has been shrouding this case for the last 2 years, the defense and the judge are mad as hell about it. The defense says it now needs more time to prepare, but is it possible that the death penalty could be taken off the table as a result? Don't forget, 4 students were brutally murdered in their off-campus house, and the stakes could not be higher for Kohberger as he fights to stay alive. No one wants a mistrial here, folks. Nobody wants an appeal that could bring everybody back for a retrial down the road. Here with me to discuss is Brian Enton, NewsNation's senior national correspondent, and also Edwina Elcox. She's a criminal defense attorney who practices in Boise, Idaho. Hi, you guys. Okay, Brian, I want to start with you because I was thinking about this over the last couple of days. I saw the interview that you did with Edwina 2 days ago, and no, you and I have been talking since. I remember Lori Vallow's case and how simple the mistake was that the prosecutors made that cost them the death penalty. They handed over discovery on a date that ended up being 1 day late because the rule was before this date, not on this date. And because it was before this date, not on this date, and the discovery landed on this date, the death penalty went away. So I'm just very concerned if there's some comparison to be made between Vallow and what we're seeing in Idaho.
I mean, you make a good point, Ashley, is that all it takes is one very, very tiny screw-up, a procedural screw-up for the judge to make a decision to take the death penalty off the table. And that is what we saw with the Lori Vallow case. It was just such a small little thing. You mentioned it. They asked for discovery before a certain date, handed it over on that date, and it ended up being considered a day late, and they threw that out, and then they ended up throwing out the death penalty. So they have to be so careful with every little thing, which could be a reason that the judge may decide to delay the trial. Why take any chances? They can get through some of these other issues that have popped up with the Dateline leak. He hasn't made a decision yet. Defense just filed their 40-page motion asking for the delay. We haven't heard anything from the judge yet.
The delay I can understand, but, my God, what if this massive curative action were taken? I don't know. Edwina, you practice in Idaho, And Bryan just described it, you know. What caused it to go south in the Vallow case was just one day, a screw up of one day of discovery. You could arguably say in Bryan Kohberger's case that a leak of all that information to Dateline is a lot bigger than a one-day discovery violation, and that cost the death penalty for the Vallow case. Do you see it as a potential curative measure in the Kohberger case, taking death off the table?
I do agree with your characterization that this seems to be so much bigger. I think the more likely path that the court takes is granting the request for a continuance versus taking the death penalty off the table in Kohberger's case. Obviously, the defense has pursued this avenue to get the death penalty off the table, albeit for a different legal remedy and route. But I think the greater likelihood is that the trial gets continued versus the death penalty gets completely taken off the table here.
Don't you think that Bryan's lawyer there on the right with the blonde hair, Ann Taylor, has some ammo here to go to the judge and say, look, I have come to you before with these requests and you have shot them down. Now I'm coming to you with a request to take the death penalty off the table because this infringement on his rights, right, of a jury pool that's not poisoned, this gag order that was so egregiously violated by the government, because the government were the only people in possession of the information that got leaked. Don't you think she has a case to be made and that the judge may have to back down?
She does have a case to be made, but when we look at the briefing, what the remedy that they seem to be requesting here, not seem to be requesting, it's absolutely what they're requesting, is a continuance time. And the case law that's cited in that briefing, there's a lot of case law cited, but that the argument that the defense, Ms. Taylor, seems to be making is what we need is space and distance between this, what can only be characterized as a completely egregious leak. But that seems to be what they're requesting, not that it's completely taken off the table this time around.
For now. But what if the judge says no continuance, no delay? And then I could see her saying, oh, really? Okay, then how about this? Take the dang death penalty off because you're not granting any relief to me to try to help me, defend my client. Okay, there's a whole other issue that's developed today, Bryan, and you got to help me sort through this. First, this judge has said that he's going to reserve 2 seats in the courtroom every day for the 2 surviving roommates, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen. And this is what he said, quote, I don't know whether they would have any desire to be here. I suspect not, given the way they've been treated in the media. But if they do, they will have seats available. I could not agree with this judge more. These poor surviving roommates have faced hell from the trolls who have just excoriated them, have been so evil and so unfair to these victims. And they're not the only people who've been victimized by trolls on the internet. Explain to me what's happened with the Gonzalez family and their Facebook page.
Oh, this is just awful. The Gonzalez family had a page called the Gonzalez Family Facebook page. It had 80,000 followers. It was a place that specifically Kaylee's mom would go on a lot and post photos of Kaylee and just sort of get support. You know, people, I've been to their house and their living room, it's full of cards and artwork and paintings and candles that people send them. And she would take pictures of those items and post them on this page. It was really very nice and helped them get through grief. Anyway, there are these groups of people, these Bryan Kohberger support groups that have been reporting the page through Facebook for fake reasons, from what I can tell, and reporting it and reporting it and reporting it. And now the page has been taken down. It's been suspended. And so the family is now trying to work to get it back up.
And we know that it's Facebook that took it down. It wasn't the judge. Then they're all blaming the Gonzalez's for the leak and that's why the Facebook page is taken down. The Gonzalez didn't have the information to leak, for God's sake. Like, these trolls just never know when to say when. Well,
leave the victims' families alone. Leave them alone.
I could not agree more.
Thank you.
I could not agree more.
Thank
you.
Like,
this is completely misplaced.
Yeah,
leave them alone.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Brian Enton and Edwina Elcox, thank you both. I appreciate it. And I'm going to appeal to Facebook. Would you please give these people some relief? Give them back their Facebook page. It's the Gonzalez family Facebook page. The trolls have done this. You could come to their rescue, Facebook. Please do so. All right, coming up next, quite a grim anniversary in a case that still has a lot of people waiting for answers. Jennifer Dulos disappeared 6 years ago tomorrow, and she has never been seen since. The wealthy and beautiful mom of 5 mysteriously disappeared after dropping her kids off at school. The handsome and successful husband was suspect number 1 until he decided to take his own life after his arrest. But there's still one loose end, one more person who's facing trial, and of course, a nagging question. Where is Jennifer's body? And why won't anyone tell her 5 kids the answer? That story and a request from Jennifer's family next. Six years ago tonight, Jennifer Dulos went to bed with a very busy day ahead. The next morning, she had to drop her kids off at school in New Canaan, Connecticut, right down the road from me, actually. And she had 2 doctor's appointments in New York in the afternoon. If her name sounds familiar, you may remember that Jennifer Dulos did get her kids to school on the morning of May 24th, 2019. It was a Friday, but she never made those doctor's appointments in the afternoon because it's widely believed that Jennifer was murdered on that day, even though her body has never been found. And the evidence is really, really compelling that her estranged husband was the one who did it. Unfortunately, we can't ask him about it because that husband took his own life months later after being charged with capital murder and kidnapping Jennifer. And if that were the end of the story, I probably wouldn't be talking about it tonight. But in some ways, it was really only the beginning. New Canaan, Connecticut, population 20,000, give or take. It is not the kind of place where a mom of 5 up and disappears. And when one does, it gets noticed.
It's very heartbreaking, very sad for this community. I know she was very well loved and she was hardworking, very organized mother. So very sorry to hear of it, and we hope she's found soon. The search for Jennifer Dulos would become the most expensive criminal investigation in Connecticut history. It began on a Friday evening in May of 2019, when 2 of Jennifer's friends couldn't reach her and realized that no one had seen her since she dropped her kids off at the New Canaan Country Day School at 8 o'clock that morning. When police arrived at Jennifer's house, a quick glance at the garage told them, call the detectives. There was blood on the floor and on the driver's side door of the missing woman's Range Rover. And there was evidence that someone had tried to clean it up in a hurry. Just an hour later, police would find Jennifer's other car, a Chevy Suburban, backed up against a tree on the edge of a nearby park called Waveney Park. That was the last place Jennifer's phone ever pinged. There was a blood-like substance on this vehicle too, and more evidence of a hasty cleanup. Jennifer Dulos was married to, but in the process of divorcing, a man named Fotis Dulos, a real estate developer, whom she'd met while both were students at Brown University. In May of 2019, the couple was battling over custody of their 5 little kids, including 2 sets of twins. Investigators asked Fotis where his wife might have gone, whether anyone might have wanted to hurt her. And they say he seemed emotionless and unconcerned. If he wasn't the #1 suspect before that conversation, he certainly was afterwards. Just 4 days after Jennifer vanished, Fotis Dulos petitioned the court for full custody of the kids. At best, exploiting a situation that was then a total mystery and likely a terrible tragedy. And at worst, Fotis knew that his children's mother wouldn't be coming back. The investigation would later reveal that the abandoned Suburban found at Waveney Park left Jennifer's home at around 10 a.m. the day she disappeared, with Fotis Dulos at the wheel. That evening,
Fotis and his then girlfriend, Michelle Troconis, were seen on surveillance cameras driving from garbage can to garbage can across the nearby city of Hartford, Connecticut. And how many garbage bins were they seen at, dumping garbage? As many as 30. Many of those bins were found to contain pieces of bloody clothing and blood-stained cleaning supplies. And that blood matched Jennifer Dulos. But Jennifer's body was never found. Nevertheless, in January of 2020, Fotis was charged with capital murder and kidnapping. His girlfriend, Michelle Troconis, she was also arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit murder, as was Fotis's former attorney, a man named Kent Douglas Mawhinney.
Everyone's waiting on pins and needles as to, will Jennifer get justice? I pray she does.
So far, only Michelle Troconis has faced some measure of justice. Fotis himself died by suicide soon after posting that $6 million bond. But in March of 2024, Michelle Troconis stood trial and was convicted. In May, she was sentenced to 14 and a half years in prison. The attorney, Kent Mawhinney, he is still free as a bird, almost, with no trial date on the docket. He too is out on bond, even after reports he tampered with his ankle bracelet. Jennifer's family has issued a statement ahead of the anniversary tomorrow, and it reads, quote, "In Jennifer's honor, we encourage those who can do so to donate to community organizations that support survivors of family violence, such as Interval House Hartford, the Rose Brooks Center, and many others, as well as to groups such as the Black and Missing Foundation and Missing Murdered Indigenous Women and Relatives. These organizations and the people they support need your help now more than ever." And we wish them all our best in their recovery, because 6 years may seem like a lot, but it's not. Still to come, how to stab a stranger in the back and look good doing it. Police in New York are on the lookout for a stylish suspect who doesn't seem to mind turning heads, but really, really doesn't want her picture taken. We, however, cannot wait for her mugshot. That story is next. Time now for the Banfield Fashion Report, also known as People Dressed to Kill, or at least people dressed up to F someone up. The latest entry is a fashionista in New York's West Village who, by happenstance, ended up in the background of a scenic picture being shot by a photographer. Police say that just after the photog snapped, she snapped. And rocking high heels, a sleek black dress, and a chic leather jacket, she went after the photog violently, punching him in the shoulder, but she wasn't done yet. She then whipped out a pair of scissors and stabbed him in the back. The New York Post calls it Britney Spears level paparazzi rage. Just as quickly as the mystery woman turned on her heels and vanished into a subway station, the search was on. The victim wasn't badly hurt, but police still want to find that attacker. And when they do, I can promise you she will have her picture taken. Then I can promise you we are going to show it to you. If you happen to know her, call the NYPD Crime Stoppers hotline at 1-800-577-TIPS. And by the way, not a bad idea because they're offering a $3,500 reward. Speaking of Britney Spears, when you are a global superstar, paparazzi just come with the territory. And no one knows that better than Britney Spears, famously caught on camera with a freshly shaven head attacking a paparazzo's car in 2007. Her erratic behavior then was the precursor to a 13-year-long conservatorship. But what happened just yesterday on board a private jet that had authorities waiting for her on the runway? That story's next. Oops, she did it again. Britney Spears has had yet another run-in with the law after what's been reported as some pretty erratic behavior. This time, of all places, at 30,000 feet in the sky. TMZ is reporting that the pop diva was apparently having a little too much fun flying in a private jet, maybe having a few cocktails even. They say that Spears was flying with her security team from Cabo San Lucas in Mexico to LAX airport in Los Angeles. The website says she was boozing it up and apparently got the hankering for a cigarette. But as we all know from those videos on the planes where the rest of us fly, smoking is not allowed on any aircraft. And guess what? It turns out that goes for private jets too. The flight attendants on board that plane apparently became alarmed, as they should, and that's when Britney, according to TMZ, became, quote, difficult. I cannot tell you anything more than that because I don't know any more than that, just that she became, quote, difficult. So once the plane landed, authorities met the plane and the pop star on the ground. That can't be good. But I guess pop stars get lucky now and then because lucky for her, TMZ says, she was only issued a warning this time. All right, that's it for tonight. I always remind you, though, check out my podcast, Drop Dead Serious. I've got daily updates on Karen Read and the Diddy trial, so check it out. They're all there waiting for you. Have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Cuomo's next.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.